In this section, we will take a look at another typical feature of imperative programming, which are loops. Since we already know how to write functions with side effects, we will now learn how to execute them one by one using different kinds of loops. Let's get started with the for loop. This for loop prints numbers from 0 to 8. We first write the for keyword, and inside the parentheses we have a loop identifier called y, the start value, and the end value of the loop. The loop identifier y takes one by one all integer values from start value to the end value. In Reason, we cannot change the loop identifier, as we can do, for example, in JavaScript. The body of the loop is evaluated for each value of the loop identifier. And because our loop doesn't return anything, its type is unit, because it's a side effect. The same applies to its body, which is expected to be unit as well. Let's verify this by returning a different type from our loop. Now, our loop returns the value of y, which is an integer. As you can see, we got a warning from the compiler telling us that we are not returning the unit type. So, whenever we return something else than unit, the compiler will print a warning. We can also use our for loop backwards. This loop behaves exactly like the normal for loop. The only difference is that we are going from the higher value to the smaller one, and we are using the down to keyword instead of to. Now, let's take a look at the while loop. While loops execute a code block when a particular condition is true. Let's take a look. We first write the while keyword followed by the test condition, which is being evaluated each iteration. So, our loop will iterate until this condition stops being true. And this is the situation when the y identifier is bigger than 8. And when this happens, the loop will stop. In the loop's body, we are mutating our let identifier, so each iteration, its value is higher. And we are doing that using the so-called reference, which enables us to modify the let identifier. And we will talk much more about this feature in one of the upcoming sections. Again, the type of the while loop is unit, because it's a side effect and it doesn't return anything. And the type of the loop's body is expected to be unit as well. Let's try to return a different type from our loop. As in the case of the for loop example, we got a warning from the compiler again, because we are not returning unit from our loop. So, is there a possibility to get rid of this warning? Sometimes we want to use an expression in the body of the loop which isn't of type unit. In such case, we want to avoid the warning from the compiler, and we can do that using the ignore function. The predefined ignore function expects a value and returns unit, so we can use it to wrap our non-unit value and transform it to unit to avoid the warning. Let's take a look. We used the ignore function to ignore the value of y. As a result, we have no warning from the compiler anymore. By doing that, we made explicit our intention that we want to ignore this particular value. Maybe you're wondering if there are rules on whether to use functions as map, filter, or fold, or whether to use a loop in your code. And the answer is, it depends on your use case. Some algorithms are more efficient with a loop, while others are faster using predefined functions such as map or filter.